I usually prefer tearing things down, but this Rally Hub changed that. Now I like putting things together too. Pokornyi Engineering sent this for review upon my request, but as always, my opinion is earned, not bought. The entire package came ready to assemble. I did not have to do everything myself, though I would have preferred to if I had a 3D printer. I'll get one in the near future. But for most people, this ready to assemble kit is the perfect balance. Inside the box, I got the PCB, stickers, carbon fiber front plate, spacers, light guides, 3D printed enclosure, cable, and a big package containing all the tiny bits and pieces. Heat set threaded inserts, screws, plexi inserts, Allen keys and headless bolt for rotary knobs and funky switches, buttons, button plates, some more screws, and knobs and switches. It's basically Lego but for sim racing. You get all of the pieces and the fun is in putting them together. Here is what the fully finished button box looks like, but before we get into all of the details, let's see how it all came together. Seeing everything laid out on the table, I wasn't sure where to begin with, but after a careful look around, it all made sense. At first glance, the disassembled state might seem overwhelming, but in reality, it's surprisingly simple. The manual helps a lot. Actually, it's incredibly detailed. The sweaty nerd in me was absolutely blown away. I started by inserting the heat set threaded inserts into the enclosure using my soldering iron at 250 degrees Celsius. You have to apply gentle, even pressure and keep it straight. The slower it moves down, the stronger the bond. It cools within seconds, but waiting 3 to 5 minutes before applying any load or torque is recommended. Next, I screwed the GX12 connector socket on the back of the enclosure and connected the other end on the PCB. Speaking of PCB, this thing is a work of art. I fell in love with it instantly. It is hands down the most aesthetically pleasing PCB I have ever seen. Usually there's a green or black one, but here the white color just makes it look so pretty. Anyways, I placed the PCB inside the enclosure and added the encoder light guide on top of it. Then it was just a matter of securing it with screws. I did the same with remaining 2 light guides. And this is where I made a mistake. I mounted the top 2 light guides upside down, which I didn't realize until I completed everything, only to find out that there is a gap in the fitment, which I fixed later on by doing a quick teardown. Next, it was time to add the push buttons, and let me tell you, it was very satisfying. Just a gentle push and they snap right in. Then I placed the plexi inserts onto the carbon fiber plate and oh wait, I almost forgot. The carbon fiber plate is awesome. I measured its thickness at 3.8 millimeters, which will provide sufficient strength to the box. It is light and that will weave pattern looks fantastic. Where was I? Oh yeah, I placed the plexi inserts on the carbon fiber plate and applied the stickers on top of it. The stickers, by the way, are really high quality. They feel amazing and have a nice thickness to them. Next, I took the button plates and secured everything nice and tight. Then added the rotary knobs and funky switches. After a few minutes, it was almost ready to go. Almost, because then came the stickers. And I gotta be honest, this was the most time-consuming part of the build. But I eventually figured it out. It looked absolutely amazing. I loved the clean design and how incredibly light it felt in hand. But we'll get into the actual weight and build quality next. After admiring it for a good amount of time, I decided to check if it powers on, and it did. Easy peasy. With everything assembled, I mounted it to my SimMagic rim and attached the QR on the back. Now it was finally ready to go. I thoroughly enjoyed the process and firmly believe that if you know how to operate standard household tools, you can build it too, even the proper DIY one. This is ready to assemble, which is far easier in comparison. Now with the build complete, it's time to see if it is as good as it looks. Starting with the price, the plug and play hub is priced at 350 euros and the DIY one is 24 euros. Alternatively, you can purchase all of the parts from the website and assemble it yourself. The weight comes just under 320 grams, which is surprisingly light. You might have noticed that there are no paddle shifters attached. And that is because I'll be using my trusty old V&M shifter alongside this push-pull rally shifter from Simnet. Review coming soon, stay tuned. With the rim, SimMagic QR and a 5mm spacer, the weight is under 1.8 kilograms. Nice. The buttons are not super tactile like in some of the higher end wheels, but that's not going to tell you squat. And neither are the sound or click tests. See, not helpful. To give you a better idea, if I had to put them on a scale where 1 is a soggy boiled potato and 10 is a perfectly crispy kettle chip, these are a solid 8.5. There is a very distinct actuation point with just enough resistance. Personally, I think they are great. Now, the funky switch is surprisingly clicky, impressively tactile. Sometimes manufacturers cheap out on these and rotary encoders, but these feel great. I kept rotating them just for the feel of it as it was very satisfying. The sound was like a bike chain spinning when coasting. The push and multi-position input were pretty tactile too. I'd rate these funky switches a solid 9. I'm not giving a 10 simply because I don't have a perfect benchmark yet. But for now, these are by far the best funky switches I have tested. Rotary encoders are on the mushier side. I'd rate them a solid 6, 6.5. That satisfying snap when the switch changes place isn't quite there, but they get the job done just fine. Moving on to the lights, they are super bright and has 4 LED per button and 6 per rotary encoder for a more even illumination. You can set all LEDs to a single color for a more uniform look or go all out with a rainbow effect. Either way, the lights are incredible. And though the LED bleed can be seen quite clearly, it looks a bit aesthetic and intentional. Though to be honest, I'm not really sure if it was intentional. Either way, looks great. The buttons help quite a bit too. They are translucent with just the right amount of frosting, allowing the light to diffuse evenly. Even at low brightness levels, the illumination remains strong, thanks to the great combination of well-designed buttons and 4 LEDs. The GX12 connector is also quite cool. It snaps itself in place and all you have to do is match the 2 red dots and you're good to go. The connection is also really solid. There seemed to be a bit of gap when fully assembled. Though pretty small, I wanted to see how tiny it was, so I inserted my metal prying tool and it fit snugly. Then I measured the thickness of the prying tool and it measured at 0.26mm. Like I said, it is pretty tiny, especially for something involving 3D printed parts. The overall build is quite sturdy. I performed a flex test to check its structural integrity and it passed with flying colors. It did not bend even the tiniest bit or made any sound. Now, I'm no Elden Lord. Yet. But I did apply a fair amount of force. With build quality out of the way, let's talk about Simhub. There's no dedicated software for this hub, it works solely through Simhub and setting it up is fairly straightforward. Go to the devices and click on add new device. It should have automatically recognized the hub. In the off chance that it does not recognize the hub, you can head over to Arduino, My Hardware, Single Arduino and find the connection there. I experimented a bunch to see what I really wanted out of the hub in terms of lighting, and I figured since this is a rally hub, rev limiter would be the best thing. I initially had the entire hub being flashed at my face, but found that to be too distracting. What I wanted was a bit of subtlety while still maintaining decent visibility in my peripheral vision. So I set the encoder's light to flash. I didn't go crazy with customizations, but I'm sure someone will. Now with this stuff out of the way, let's talk about that 71.39172% increment in immersion. A hub increased my immersion. Saying that out loud sounds a bit crazy, but is actually true. The shape alone plays a huge role in making me feel connected to the car on my screen. It somewhat resembles the Rally 1 Ford Puma's hub, though the button placements are quite different. What really sets it apart is how it sits on the top of the rim, unlike many hubs that mount behind it. That small detail rekindled my love for rallying all over again. Even though I have put stickers of brake bias, it cannot be adjusted on the fly in rallying, which kind of sucks. Real life Rally 1 cars can adjust it on the fly, but eh. This hub can be used for track racing as well, but I solely used it for rally. I don't usually give buying advice, but this time I will. The rally enthusiast in me is genuinely happy. Sure, you can go out and buy the Fanatic Podium Rally Hub, and so can I. But there is a unique satisfaction in putting something together and watching it come to life. It's not just about the cost, it's about the process. But if assembling your own hub isn't something that you're into, be sure to check out the plug and play version and more on Pokornyi Engineering's website. That's been it. I've been Dad Snape, and may the downforce be with you.